a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, welcome everybody to the Road to the National Series here on the Sports Cards Live YouTube channel. We are counting down to the 2025 National in Chicago. I'm joined today by my friend Adam Gray, content creator, basketball card expert, and collector. He's the author of the upcoming 25 and 25 Iconic Series. Adam, welcome to the Road to the National Series. How are you today, my friend, my buddy?
Man, I'm just great because anytime I get to hang out with you and talk about cards, it's always great. But we have something to really look forward to with the National coming up, and that we get to talk about that today and maybe a few other things is always awesome. So I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks. I always love creating content with you, talking hobby. And, you mentioned that we're going to be able to see each other here in a couple months at the National. We are recording here towards the end of May. But Adam, what's interesting to me is that we've been friends for about 7 years now. The first year was strictly online. We had a common love for collecting cards, specifically some basketball cards, but we met in person at the 2019 National for the very first time. We got to, have a fist bump and look at each other eye to eye, which is rare for both of us. We're both well over 6 feet tall, but the National is somewhere where you can do these things. You can rekindle friendships, you can build relationships. And, I know that you do not go to a lot of card shows. I'm sure you'd like to go to more than you do, but you don't go to many. You have a big family, a lot of activities, but you do prioritize going to the National Sport Collectors Convention every year. Why do you do that? Why do you think it's so important to you to be there?
Well, I love the story that you just told of when we got to see each other in 2019, and that's probably a great example of why I like to go to the National. So I remember from that quick little meeting that just happened that I saw this giant of a man in front of me and came up to me and just said, "Hi, I'm Jeremy, Adam," and I was like, "Oh, you're way taller than I thought you were." That was before we had done a lot of the things that we've done together, and so that was fun. But I don't know if you also remember, but we pulled out some cards and we sat down and we looked at some cards together. You had recently bought a $50 Kevin McHale rookie card from a certain table, and we were just talking about these things. And to be able to do that in person is different than online. And I could also just use the word better. It's better to be able to do some of those things in person. I wish I could go to all the card shows in the world, but time is our scarcest resource, as they say. And I've got 4 kids and a wife, and life here is I don't want to be in other places for the most part. I want to be here. And so I try to get to one a year. I try to get to one show a year. And the National is the one place where I'm probably going to see the most people. So I try to go to it every year. That's why I try to get to it every single year.
I love how you remember my Kevin McHale purchase at the show. But what I remember, I don't remember showing you that. Again, we are looking back 6 years. But what I remember, and this is one of the wonderful things about the National, is that, you can walk the show floor and discover all these cards. But you also, what you don't know are all the treasures that are hiding in other attendees' backpacks or carrying cases and all that. And I remember you showed me some of your cards, and you showed me your Michael Jordan Jambalaya, and I'd known that was a beautiful card. I don't recall that I had ever held one in hand before holding yours. And that one little moment, that interaction that I wasn't expecting, turned into me going on a quest to acquire that card for myself, which I didn't think I'd find one and be able to afford it and all these things. I think I managed to find one in early 2020. So it wasn't that much later. And then we were card brothers. We both owned our Jambalaya. But it was that meeting you at the show and you showing me the card that set me off on a goal to purchase one myself. There are so many things about the National that are unique to it. And I think it's the foundation of that is just the amount of people that go to it and the community that is formed there, and the way we maintain our relationships with each other by seeing each other once a year at the National. Maybe we see each other elsewhere as well, but the National really does facilitate that for so many of us. Now, we are hobby veterans. We've been in this hobby our whole lives, basically. But can you take an angle from me, Adam? And if you were talking to somebody who is maybe a sports fan, let's say you're at a Utah Jazz basketball game, and there's somebody sitting beside you, and you can tell they love the sport, they love basketball, but they may not even have sports cards on their radar. And you started a conversation with them, what would you say to them about going to a card show, going to the National? What would you say to somebody who is expressing that they're maybe a little bit curious about sports cards and you'd like to see them come into the hobby?
Well, the first thing that I think you'd need to do, and I've had so many of these conversations over the years, first thing you have to do is explain to somebody, or not explain, but show somebody why you love cards. And that's really easy to do with a sports fan. You're sitting with somebody who loves sports. They probably have a favorite athlete. They probably feel close to that athlete in some sort of way. They might own a jersey or something. But when you're able to sort of like identify in their minds that there are these little pieces of art that they can acquire, that there's only a certain number of, and that are specific to their player or their team or that sort of thing, then at that point, some people, some percentage of them are going to understand, oh, like finding that was difficult, and that's of the right player, and that's from the right set. And that takes, that could take years for them to really understand all the complexities of that. But first sort of getting them a hint of interest in that, like a seed of interest in that idea. And once you've done that, then the idea is, well, where can you go see as many of these things in person as possible? And a card show, any card show is the best place where you can see a lot of people, but there's no card show like the National, where you've got thousands of tables and you've got every type of card under the sun, everything old and new and all different sports. And again, as I said earlier, you're going to get to see the people at a show who are like you. So even though the Utah Jazz are probably not they're probably not the LA Lakers, right? They're probably not the most collected team in the world. If I go to the National and I'm looking for Utah Jazz fans, or Utah Jazz cards and fans, there are going to be lots of cards and there are going to be lots of fans. And so it's a great place to meet some of those people, even though it's not local. It's still a great chance for you to see a lot of those people who are like you.
So the National this year is 2 months away. Right now we are recording again the end of May. What are you most looking forward to this year for yourself at the National?
So I would say it's the same thing every year for me. And this is where I'm weird and different, and this probably isn't the right answer. I go to see people. I go to see my friends, right? Like, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see other people who I haven't met in person before. But because I go as infrequently as I do, it is always a massive treat for me to meet people who I talk to online. And so that, for me, by far and away, it's about the people. And I know that, like I said, that's probably not the right answer, because most people want to hear all about the cards. But for me, it really is more about the people.
And there's no right or wrong answer here. You're going to go. You're entitled to go for your own reasons. It is a card show, though. It's a card show. It's the community that comes to life. Are you going to have a list of things that you want to do there, tasks or cards you want to see? Are you going to have a to-do list when you walk in that show this year? Every
year that I've been, this is what I've done. I get to the airport. I've got a long flight ahead of me. I get on when I get my free minute, I make sure my bag's really close to me. I never let go of my bag, even for a second, right? And then I pull out my phone and I open a note and I write down things to do. And it always starts with people who I need to see, or in my case, companies that I need to see people from. And I'll write all those things down. And so then I've got the people that I need to see. And then always on my list also, I have this one note, which is make a deal. I haven't made a deal every year, Jeremy. I have only ever actually made one deal at the National. I've been close every other time. I know that's ridiculous. I've only made one deal ever at the National, but that's the goal, is to find one card that I want, make one trade, make one purchase or one sell. I guess I have made a couple more sells, but if I can do that, as well as see the people that I want to. And then there's times also, like I remember a few years ago, there was a really nice Wagner that was on display. I really wanted to see the Wagner in person. Last year, there were some cards that were at auction with Heritage that I had to see, that I was going to be bidding on. And so I made a point to go to Heritage. I found Jason Simons from Heritage, and he actually let me see the cards and, hold them and stuff. And so those are the things the sort of things that I've done in the past, mainly people, but there's always a few other things that I have on my list of things to do.
you mentioned the Wagner card and you're referring to the T206 Hannes Wagner. And it reminds me of, I forget what year it was, somewhere in the 2012 to 2014 era. I was at the National in Cleveland. And unfortunately, I don't remember which auction house it was, but they had two Hannes Wagner T206s, and I held one in each hand. And I took a picture. I can't find that picture right now, but I've definitely seen that. Now, you piqued my curiosity when you said I've really only done one deal. You went on to say you've done a few sales, but there's obviously one memorable deal for you that you did at the National. What was it? What'd you buy? What'd you sell? What'd you get?
So it was my first one. I had a friend named James who had a Damian Lillard flawless rookie, which was encased. It is his only on-card autograph from his rookie year that's NBA licensed, the only one. And there's only 20 or 25 that were made in the base format in flawless. And so I was trying to get one of these cards for years. And when I say years, I mean literally from 2013 when it came out to 2019 when I got it. Like I was looking for that card all that time. So I saw him, or he saw me on the show floor. We each sort of pulled out our stuff and started looking back and forth. He found a Jordan card of mine that he wanted, which I'm sure is worth way, way, way more than the Lillard is now. But we just sort of looked at each other and it was like, this deal is meant to be. He knew that I needed the Lillard and he wanted the Jordan. And so we did it. And I said, I think the Jordan's worth quite a bit more. You want to give me some cash? And he's like, not really. I was like, can we just do something? And he's like, I'll give you $20. And I was like, all right, fine. We'll just take $20. So, but I'll bet you that Jordan card now is probably $5,000. And the Lillard I sold maybe 2 years ago now for like $1,500. So he definitely got the better of me there.
Well, you have the memory. We're talking about it now. 2019 National, where we met in person for the first time, was your first National. I want you to think back to your plane ride home from that show, if you can. And I want you to give advice to someone who's going for the first time here. What were you thinking on your way home that you would have done differently if you had been before? Because now you've been there before. You're on your plane ride home and you're thinking to yourself, well, next year at the National, I'm going to do this different or that different. Maybe I won't do maybe I'll have a different strategy for covering the floor. Think back to that moment, leaving that first National. What lessons did you learn that you would carry forward and give someone who's going for the first time?
You'll never know until you're there how impossible it is to see everything. It's impossible. And I've heard other people say this. I had heard other people say it before I went to my first show. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And I thought, well, I'll get around and I've got a couple days. You just can't conceive of how big it all is until you're there. And the thing that makes it particularly difficult is that as you're seeing the people who you want to talk to, and they all actually speak the same language as you, as most people don't in your normal day-to-day, you want to spend time with those people. And so a few hours will go by and you'll realize I haven't seen anything. I haven't done anything compared to what I wanted to. And then this sort of dread hits, like, I'm not going to make it to everything. So you really have to leave yourself plenty of time. And even if you do, there's pretty good chance you're just never going to get to everything that you want to. So you've got to prioritize that, have that list that I talked about and know what that is. And then also at the same time, you've got to be willing to you've got to be able to be flexible, because some opportunities and moments might come that if you don't jump at, then you'll miss out on those.
I think that's good advice. And it's true. It is huge. And, I think you can, over the 5 days of the show, if you're there for 5 days, you can cover the whole show floor, but that doesn't mean you're going to see everything, because not only are there cards that are under cards and people have boxes in behind, the inventory is fluid. It's changing throughout the day. And among the days, you can go to a vendor on Wednesday and he can have a 50% turnover of his inventory by Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So you don't only want to cover the show floor once if you're there for 5 days. You kind of want to double back and see what has changed as well. Now, I want to ask you this. I mean, it's a big trip for all of us. I mean, I'm flying in from Canada. You're going to fly from Utah to Chicago. Are you hoping to leave with a specific card? Do you have a target in mind? Like, I know for me, Adam, I've got 4 or 5 cards that are atop my want list. number one, I can't afford to buy them all, but I can maybe grab one of them. I hope to. And then there's lower priority cards that maybe I can pick off a couple because they're lower value. So that's, for me, that's what I'm going to hope to accomplish, is maybe one top priority card and a couple lower level priority cards. But what about you? Is there something specific you're looking to acquire this time?
So you're going to laugh. Last year, I had a specific card that I wanted to go home with, and it's a 1 of 1, and it's just, not only is there only one in the world, this is like really the only card that I wanted that's like this. And I met the owner of the card there, and we looked at it, and he looked at me and he goes, "We're not going to come to an agreement right now, but why don't you just take the card home with you, and then we'll figure out the details later."
What?
Yeah, true story. But I know this individual. I know him well. And I thought, I just don't think we're going to actually get to a deal on this, and I don't want to have him holding this over me. So I handed the card right back to him. And once you have that moment where like there's this card that you want more than any other card, and then you still don't go home with it, like I don't really, like, I don't have something specific where I'm like, I have to go home with this, but I have things that would improve my collection. And if I come across something like that, then I'll have stuff with me to try to make a deal and to get it done. But I don't have I don't have 4 or 5 specific cards. I just have a lot of things that I think could improve my collection. And if I find one of those things, I'll go after it for sure.
You mentioned you'll have stuff with you. So obviously money we can use to exchange for cards. That goes without saying. But you mentioned stuff. So I assume you're going to bring cards with you that you can then use to trade towards something you see. If you see something there, how will you approach the show knowing that there's 5 days? And if you see a card that you like up front, you don't maybe want to use all your resources on the Wednesday or Thursday. You're still there for 3 more days. So what's your strategy to negate that and make sure that you don't do something that you might regret later on?
Okay, so your question you just asked is like one of my favorite questions. Like, I think this is a great question. And I think most people, the answer is you've got to be really careful that you don't just blow everything real quick, because most of the people are bringing cash, right? I don't bring cash to a national. I don't. I know that's probably a terrible idea. I bring cards, right? I bring cards that are for trade, and I think that people are going to find interesting. Cards that I still want in my collection that I'm probably very unwilling to let go of, but there's a chance just in case I see some of the right stuff. So let's say I see something on that first day that I want. I don't care if it's the first day, second, third, fourth, whatever. I have stuff that is tradable, and the only question that applies to me, the only one is, do I like that thing that guy's holding more than I like the stuff that he's requiring that I give to him? And if the answer is yes, then I'll do the deal. Whether it's day 1 or day 5, it just doesn't make any difference to me. But the question that you're asking is so important for other people, because most people come with a budget. They come with money. They know what they're going to spend. And Jeremy, it's the hardest thing in the world, because if you wait too long and you miss out on something, you're going to kick yourself. But if you spend it all up front and then you don't have money and then you see at the end, you're going to kick yourself. It's just, I think that's impossible to manage. And you would have to know what else you're going to see before you make the decision, but you don't know that. So it's sort of like a cross your fingers and do your best, but it's going to be impossible to manage that.
Yeah. My advice to people on that, and I think you're so right. My advice is, if the item you see when you first walk in and you love it is a rare item, you might just have to make that move and come to terms that, that might blow your budget for the rest of the week. But now you can seek out other ways of enjoying yourself at the show besides shopping, having conversations, learning about other items, browsing, getting contacts. Maybe there's a card you like, but you can't afford it. You're out of money. Well, get that dealer's name, get their contact information. You can reach out to them later if they still have the item. Maybe they'll even hold it for you. Maybe you can give them a small deposit towards it and they'll take it off their table and you can complete the deal later. It's a great place for networking, building long-lasting relationships with fellow collectors or people who you like to buy cards from, vendors as well. So the show itself, Adam, it evolves over time. And if you were to go to the national once every 10 years, you're probably going to notice big differences. But you were there last year. You're going to be there this year. Do you have any predictions as to what you think might have changed or might change at the national from last year to this year?
I don't have any things that I feel like this is definitely going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if the already sort of huge numbers that we've seen the last couple of years just continue to grow. And that's based on, seeing some of the more recognizable cards in the hobby really increase in value over the course of the last year. I think the hobby is hot right now. And so we're going to see a lot of people there who are like, I'm going to the National for the first time, or I got into the hobby over the course of the last year and a half, and this is going to be the first time that I get to go, and I want to make a mark at my first show. And so that's always scary because there's just not enough room on the floor. We're always sort of looking around going, oh my goodness, look how many people are here. And I think we're going to be doing that more than ever this year. It's an impossible problem that the people at the National have to solve. And I don't know how they do it, but that also comes with the territory of having so many people in the same place. And that's why you go, right? That's why I go, is because I want to be there with so many different people who are like me. But also, like, that is part of what makes it difficult, because Jeremy, like, there's so many people there.
I think you're right. The hobby is hot. I think we're going to break attendance record year over year. It feels like we do that every year. And I think one of the things that I think will be a bit different, and it's different, but it's not different. Here's what I mean. It'll be not different because we're going to have a bunch of new hobbyists in the room yet again, but they're different new hobbyists. We've seen a rise in TCG, things like Pokemon, and VFriends has a Topps Chrome product out now. That's Gary Vaynerchuk's new IP that we're hearing a lot about right now. He'll have a huge installation at the show, I'm sure. He's had it in the past. It's been a spectacle. It'll be even bigger spectacle again this year now that he's partnered with Topps on that. I think we're going to see a lot of new people there. I think it's going to be busy and it's going to be exciting. The vibe is going to be palpable. I feel like I think it's just going to be a great environment to be in. And I really just can't wait for it. Now, all that said, do you have any sort of hot takes on the National or the hobby in general? What do you see as a topic that is going on? It's newsworthy right now. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's your own hot topic, but what really gets your brain thinking when it comes to hobby topics right now?
Well, you mentioned, new things are happening, and you mentioned at the beginning that I'm doing this 25 and 25 iconic series that we haven't really announced yet. That this, for some people, this can be the first time that they've heard about it. The reason that I think that it's so important right now to be talking about these things is, one, this is an important moment. We've just finished, 25 years of this century. So we have 25 years worth of data to look back at. And I think it's notable to ask the question, what are the 25 most iconic cards for those first 25 years? And so after, we do a long process to create a survey, and we have, potentially thousands of people to take the survey, thousands of hobbyists. We'll have a list that will have been crowdsourced, and it's going to be really fun to see how people view that list, how they engage with it, what they think of it. Some people are going to look at it and say, this is insane. How could this card end up number 10? It should have been number 1, and vice versa. How did this card not make the list? I think there's going to be hockey fans who are like, wait, where are the hockey cards? How many hockey cards are there? That sort of thing. So I'm excited to see how people engage with that, particularly because we have so many new people. Like, as those new people are looking at everything that's out there, and they say, how did these 25 cards fit into what I think are iconic? I'm interested to see that from my perspective.
So as far as a hobby take, you are about to create content that is going to cause people to have some hot takes on it, I think is where we're going. The 25 and 25 iconic series, as you just mentioned, you alluded to a survey. So why don't you just go into a bit more detail into what it is exactly you're doing here? Why are you doing this, Adam? I mean, you mentioned you think it's important, but why is it important to look back on these 25 years and to identify the top 25 most iconic cards of it? And how do you plan to create this list? You mentioned survey. What does that mean? Anybody can have a vote?
Yeah, anybody can have a vote. So the reason that it's important, the why that you just asked, is the most important thing to answer here, right? And the why is that with all of the new people who are out there, there's a question as to, where do I start? What cards matter? And the only way you can figure that out is by asking the community, right? A lot of people come up with their own lists. You see a lot of articles that are like, these are the whatever, these are the greatest or the best or the most iconic, or some people just use, what stuff sold for, or some people just use how many cards have been graded. What I want to do is ask the question, what does the community feel is iconic? And then let that sort of like just start the conversation, and wherever it goes, I don't know what card for sure is going to end up number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, but I think it's it's an educational thing where people can then look at it and go, why does that card matter? They can use it for, is this something that I like? If it's not, then that's totally fine. But it gives people a chance to sort of identify what they believe and what they think about what things are iconic. And again, I think a lot of people will disagree with the things that come through on the list, because every time we've done something like this, people have disagreed. That's just how it is. So back to your question about like how the survey is actually done, part of it, because I solicited your help to come up with the hockey cards that should go on the list. And so there are 10 hockey cards that are all on the list, and people will get to choose those if they want to for their list of 25. There's a bunch of basketball, baseball, football, all of the different sports that are also on the list. It's over 100 total cards, and everybody who wants to can get on the link. It will be out here. I don't know when this is going to air, but I think it will already be out by the time this airs. People will be able to click on the link, and they'll be able to go to the list of cards, and they'll be able to select the number 1 card and number 2, and they'll go all the way down to 25. They'll hit submit at the end. And then that, along with the thousands of others, will be averaged together. It won't be just me who will be doing the averaging. GemRate also will be doing that to make sure that the numbers are, what we say they are in the end. And then in the end, we'll unveil them one at a time. We'll do a countdown from 25 down to 1, and people will be able to say whether they agree with what the community thinks or not. But again, it's what the community thinks. It's not what I think.
I love it. The accountant that you are, Adam and I both have accounting backgrounds. You are having the gathering of this data, the calculations. You're actually having it audited by GemRate. I think that's a great touch, and I think that'll bring credibility. And
Jeremy, just for what it's worth, like we're both CPAs here. If you want to audit it as well, if we want to have a third party in it, I would love to have you do it as well. 100%.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation. I'll see how my calendar can accommodate that. I think the problem I have with that, Adam, is that I just trust you. I trust that the data will be compiled properly to the point where I probably don't need to. But if you want me to, I'm always happy to help you out with anything you're working on. You know that. I think it's interesting. So anybody can take the survey. There will be over 100 cards to choose from. Will there be on the survey the ability to write in your own, like a write-in vote? If I think a card should be one of the top 100 that I might think is a top 25, will I be able to put that in, or is that list to choose from fixed from the get-go?
We're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that no one looks at the list and goes, you left something off. However, there is a chance that some individuals will wish that certain cards had been there. So per the suggestion of my good friend Jeremy Lee, we will include a place where people could say, I think you shouldn't have left this off. But in reality, that it's sort of like saying, hey, let's write somebody in for president, and then that person's going to win. That's never going to happen. If we're not going to have enough people write in the same card that it's going to end up on the list. But it would be good to know if we do miss something. We're doing everything we can. And you got to know, like, having over 100 cards on the list, there's a bunch of cards on this list that people are going to go, there's no way that's going to end up in the top 25. But within the sphere of that sport, those collectors themselves, they're passionate. Like, this card needs to be on here. And I sort of put my hands in the air and go, what's the harm in having more cards on the list to choose from? The risk is that we don't put the card on the list. There's very little risk with putting too many cards on the list to choose from.
Now, at the National, which is the end of July, early August here in Chicago in 2025, will you be promoting this project of yours? I mean, you're doing this list in the spirit of content, education, entertainment. Do you have a strategy for your time at the National to promote it? Will the whole list be revealed in time for the national. So a few questions there, but please fill us in.
I think there's a good chance that we will have just finished the countdown of the list. That's our goal. We're late in starting. The book will not be ready by the national. I wish that it would be, because it would be great to save on shipping and handling. But yeah.
Book.
Yeah, we're gonna do a book. So yeah, we'll have a book, and that will come out at the end, though, right? We're not going to present the book and then do the countdown. We're going to do the countdown. Then there will be the book, again, with the gem rate data as far as, the population counts across all the cards that are on the list, as well as write-ups from collectors and people who own the cards as to why they're important. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be a huge, awesome project that a lot of people are going to feel really good about. And again, I think other people are going to look at it and they're going to say, why did that card end up higher than that one? It happens every time I've done one of these countdowns. We wanted to make sure that you could look at the process at the end and go, I don't think there's anything else you could do to make this list as good as this is. This is as good as it gets. It's audited. They painstakingly chose all of the cards that went on this. There's no cards that could have conceivably made the top 25 that weren't on the survey. And thousands of people actually did the survey. Like, it's as good as we can possibly do. And I think people will say that at the end. And I think people are going to be really interested to see where it goes. So as that pertains to the national, I'm guessing that people are going to look at me and go, how in the world did this happen? And I'm just going to say, hey, that's what people say. And if people vote that way, some elections, people are like, how did that go that way? Like, ask the voters. I don't know. Like, you just have to ask the people who are members of the community.
One of the things that I think that this list will be really helpful for is providing direction, almost like an anchor, if you will, to somebody who's looking to get into the hobby. And what I mean is, you can take an interest in sports cards. Maybe you go to the national and you take this list. Maybe this becomes your shopping list. I say maybe this becomes your shopping list, but the first draft of it, because you may not care about football cards or hockey or baseball or basketball or wrestling or one of those. So you're gonna immediately eliminate those from the list, and then you can build from it and look for other cards that may be complemented to come up with your top 25 cards that you want to own. Maybe the national is a place where you acquire 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them. And that the list can always be changing. There's no reason that you can't change your shopping list for sports cards along the way. And it's also the foundation to building a deeper collection down the road, because there are more than just iconic cards in the hobby. And just because the community thinks something is iconic doesn't mean that it resonates with you as a collector. So use it as a baseline and build out from there would be my advice.
On that last point, there is not a single card that is on this checklist. There's one card on this checklist that I own. And it's not going to make the final list. It's not. I'd be shocked if it did. My point is, this is not a guide as to how to collect. It is a guide as to what people in the hobby believe is iconic. And whether you collect those cards or not doesn't matter. But what does matter is understanding what other people find interesting, what other people find iconic. I would say start with that. If you got a new collector, you want to just read like what makes people like the cards that are in this book, or as they watch the other content that will come out on this day after day. I think they'll find themselves being educated, understanding why people like the cards. Because again, as with almost all of my content, it's not going to be about value. It's not going to be about why, like, about this card, like it's worth this much, it should be worth more, it should be worth less. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to ask the question, why is this iconic? And then talk about those things. And that's just strictly like educational, entertaining, getting people into like you said earlier, I'm at a Jazz game and I'm talking to somebody about Luka Doncic on the Lakers, and they say, boy, what are Luka Doncic's main cards? What cards are people interested in? If I could point them to this and say, here's this card that made this list, let's talk about why, then that might be a way that they can get into the hobby.
You mentioned your content. You're doing the 25 in 25 iconic series. You do a lot of great work on Instagram. Your real work, REEL, not REAL, your real work on Instagram, I want to shout it out. It's great content that you put out. It's always very educational and entertaining. Is Instagram the best place for people to follow you, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. At the Real 27 guy on Instagram is the best place.
All right, man. Well, listen, I want to thank you for joining me here on the Road to the National series here on Sports Cards Live. This is the 4th of 6 episodes, everybody, in partnership with the National Sports Collectors Convention. Adam, thanks for sharing your experience and your wisdom with anybody who is listening and watching. Appreciate your time as always, and I look forward to seeing you in Chicago at the end of July at the National. Thank you so much.
Can't wait for it.